Cleveland is typical of most of our large American cities today. Has many of the same problems, and most of the same assets, and is looking for most of the same things. It's a city, like others, trying to find itself, searching for a commitment.
I think an analysis of Cleveland shows that the direction is just uncertain. We're not sure whether business will completely take over the downtown area or there'll be an influx of housing units. Right now, it seems that Cleveland will remain pretty stagnant with just a large amount of business during the day, very little entertainment at night, and practically no housing units in the downtown area.
I think this is probably true because the city itself doesn't know which direction to take. The Cleveland Now program is trying to generate some new interest in the downtown area.
Here the Terminal Tower stands as a landmark upon the skyline of Cleveland. And from the Terminal Tower, you can see the industrial flats of Cleveland in the Cuyahoga River Valley. There's a gigantic scale associated with the flats and the industry in them. Here is the Tremont area, the area chose by our study group to be studied in this problem. Tremont has been a port of entry for previous groups in the past, the European groups, and now the Appalachian whites and Negroes. By car, you can reach Tremont on Interstate 71, also by rapid transit and a feeder bus. But a pedestrian has a pretty hard time reaching Tremont from the downtown area, and we feel this is one of the detriments to the Tremont area. It really doesn't help its growth.
On entering Tremont, one does feel somewhat of an isolation at first. Even though now that you're in Tremont, the downtown area is still visible by the symbol of the Terminal Tower.
Here in the existing Lincoln Park in the Tremont area, we see the area settled by the immigrants of the years past. This area is still quite vital and is a strong shaper of the Tremont community. We feel any problem or any physical change in Tremont must take this park and its surrounding area into consideration.
The ethnic nature of the area is quite visible in observing the people walking around and observing the signs that represent the past of these people, the signs on the stores and the signs on the churches. Even though their younger members have moved out to other communities, the older members of this old ethnic background still remain.
This ethnic group, mostly Eastern Europeans, as we've said, really have been the steadying force in the community and has kept Tremont considerably more viable than some of the other West Side areas till today.
Well, contrasting these traditionally older ethnic people are the young people we see today, made up of predominantly the Appalachian whites that we've mentioned, provides quite a strong contrast.
younger settling mostly on a periphery of Tremont, however, and
these people are easily seen just working on their cars or walking within the street or playing ball in the street, which might also indicate a lack of recreation space.
One thing should be noted here that these Appalachian whites and some Negroes that are moving in the area are highly transient in their nature. They move in and out of the Tremont area. Their kids are in school for 6 months and then they leave. And we feel that any solution for the Tremont area, if it is a housing solution, should take into consideration the transient quality of these people. The two primary bad areas of housing are located on the north and south sides of the hillside. These are substandard housing. This is substandard housing, and this is primarily where the newcomers locate. They're of a deprived economic as well as cultural background, which makes it very difficult for them to progress in our economic strata.
The housing in this area is extremely bad and should really be classified as a slum, with inadequate plumbing and inadequate shelter protection from the elements.
Some areas don't even have ordinary sewer systems associated with a modern city today.
Yet this is still Cleveland. This organizational chart represents the task that we had before us. We had a client. He came to a group of architects, and these architects worked with the community to formulate goals, programs, and procedures to implement some of these community goals. We dealt with both the present, and we tried to project some of these future goals into some viable force which would shape the community. We then went and discussed implementation of these future goals.
The client, as we see him, is an industrial or corporate interest in the flat. We feel that this is the only force in the community today that has the economic power behind him to finance such a study, although maybe a selfish study because he someday might want to take over the Tremont area.
Well, I think it could be noted that this client, this industrial client, could easily see Tremont becoming a source for employees if the area was built up. The architects, on the other hand, came from the academic community of Case Western Reserve's architectural department. These were fifth-year students who worked along with the community.
The community, as we saw it today, was quite segmented and was not really organized in one total group. The very nature of Tremont being ethnic seemed to lend to a breaking down of groups. There are maybe 35 or 40 different groups in the Tremont area. And we felt for any physical development to take place in Tremont, these groups would have to be organized under the name or the organized into one whole group that could speak for the Tremont area and apply for federal or state funds.
I think it has to be shown to the people that it's to their interest to do so. I think the top priorities were the solving of the real problems that the people see living in Tremont, and that those problems are very obvious to anyone who spends much time there.
Well, pollution must be by far the biggest problem in the area. It's, besides being visible and the damage that it causes, without solving this one problem, the study of Tremont or any part of Cleveland is quite useless.
At this time, the pollution surrounding Tremont like it does is a a big reason why the housing along the hillside is probably the worst housing in Tremont.
Well, it was with this assumption that our problem proceeded. We felt that in order for anybody to do a study of Tremont, they'd have to realize that pollution would have to be cleaned up in the flats.
As you can see, the housing, which in this case is near the hillsides, is very run down, substandard.
In analyzing the future, the study team felt we would really have to analyze the building practices and procedures of the past as well as the present today. And looking at some of these procedures and realizing that many structures today just didn't accommodate any flexibility. I mean, in order for a new use to come about in a building would have to be torn down. And even looking at some of the new buildings going up today, we felt that this really wasn't taken into consideration, that a change in use would usually mean the tearing down of a building.
Well, it's more than just a change of use, I think. It's also a change in the use of the area. Besides the
lifestyles, too.
Yeah, besides the use of just the structure itself, the mere fact that that type or that use makes sense in a particular area may not be true in the future.
Even the life of the building itself has changed. Buildings of the past may have lived for 50 or 60 years with the change of area development and new uses for the building, but certainly in the future the life of a building will not last as long as it has in the past.
Well, I think we can say that we see the societies of the future being much more mobile, physically mobile. People are going to move around much more, and they're going to have to be accommodated for. They're going to be actually transient, like the group we're dealing with in Tremont.
And the economics of tearing down and rebuilding to meet the changes and needs is very great.
Well, I think this all shows the need for some flexible solutions within the planning structure.
And it's with this in mind that we went about developing a type of modular unit, not particularly applicable to all situations, but we felt it might work in Tremont. Here you can see that it evolves from a simple tetrahedron and it forms a structural square. Infill panels could be put in, and this could become a very nice living unit, which could be flexible to the point that it could be moved from one part of the community to the other, or from one part of the region to the other.
The use of the infill panels provides a flexibility on the individual unit basis, and then the units in groups have a wide range of flexibility. They can be stacked, strung end to end. Being structural within themselves, they can be used to span freeways or be used as bridges or parking decks.
It was particularly in the Tremont area that we felt a solution like this was useful, because we had certain topographical conditions of the hillside that had to be considered, and we felt that a solution such as this one here could accommodate to these features. It could span the Clark Freeway, and it could be set on the hillsides.
The questions really are asked is, how does one decide to build, if one decides to build on a hillside or take advantage of the topographical assets of the community, what kind of building structure is needed for this with the future density patterns that we'll see?
I think we see that the massing of these units in a megastructure relates the scale of the flats to that of the individual units existing in Tremont today.
I think that's a good point. We need a sympathetic scale.
Also in the community, we felt that there was a fragmentation, that there were too many street patterns, cut the area up, and that we felt our solution could be first started on the north side quadrant, where was particularly bad housing units were located.
I think any new development should take place where the worst housing exists.
It also has the best assets, the hillside for one, and overlooking the flats and overlooking Cleveland.
We felt later stages of the development of our solution could take place on the south side, where the Clark Freeway would go through, and that the module could span right over the freeway. thus connecting the adjacent play field with the Tremont area and not isolating this play field from Tremont.
Well, just the mere fact of breaking down the hillside, the barrier of the hillside, it connects
Integrated, you know.
Tremont to the rest of the city. You know,
Well, you can
more.
begin to see a buildup of the hillside and the flats.
Further development on the side of the hillside could take place maybe in a stage of 10 years. We're not proposing that this happen all at once, and it was with this in mind that we thought that, you know, a staging type of thing could take place.
And the understanding that long-term flexibility would help any staging process.
Yeah, that's right.
These buildups also could, due to their flexibility, could take into account the current population and other needs of the community and change with those changes in population needs.
We also felt that the unit could be punched into existing housing, so an arm of the megastructure might go into the existing community and more sympathetically unite new and
It
old.
would just be a further integration of all the parts that make up the whole.
The whole being the community, both new housing and the old
And
housing.
old, you know, rather than separating.
And even industry in the flats.
Later stages could unite the north and the south by a type of core area, which could have businesses located in shopping and some recreation. It was what was noted in our study that there was very little shopping and business located in the Tremont area, and that the citizens of this area really needed something on that order.
This can further be expanded to include and to reach Lincoln Park, and in that way totally integrating the community and unifying the community.
Tremont, as we've seen, is really isolated from Cleveland and really from the flats. It's a community within itself with no growth possibilities. And the proposed freeways are going to just split Tremont in half and take away some valuable housing land, existing housing and the possibility to build new housing.
Here the path of the Clark Freeway will take out quite a few housing units located in Tremont. And it was with this in mind that we thought that our structure could span this freeway and provide new housing units for Tremont.
The hillside also provides a good opportunity to relate visually to downtown. Downtown can be a fairly exciting place to see visually, and with the hillside and
I think to do that, though, we have to build up the density of that area.
Well, building up the density and also trying to connect it with some kind of rail, whether it's an extension of the existing rapid transit, or maybe a smaller mini rail, I don't think it really makes much difference. But
well,
Tremont would have to be physically united more with downtown for
well, in that way too, you're
feel a part of Cleveland.
Yeah.
you're providing residences nearby downtown, and therefore you're putting more people into the downtown area and perhaps helping to expand the life of Cleveland.
I think it might be important to note that this is dependent on somewhat of an optimistic approach to downtown, the buildup of downtown and the need for housing downtown. But our flexible solution is needed because we really don't know the priorities and the directions that the city will take.
Well, our group considered and tried to deal with the transient population of Tremont. And after studying the area, we considered that housing should be put in Tremont, and it would have to be accommodated, or the people would have to be accommodated in a flexible type structure that related to the downtown area. And we felt if the community could organize itself, it could apply for federal funds and gain the monies necessary for physical development.